Alpha Models has been sending me out a lot of their new 1/24th scale resin kits lately for me to build and show you guys what these kits are made of and how you can build your own. This time I'm going to be building their BMW M4, one of their most recent releases, and showing you guys what's in the box and of course taking you along for the build as well. Now first off, I want to start with saying that there is something wrong with this kit, specifically the box art. It shows a BMW M4 CS, and the kit that is in here is actually the regular version. So it does have different wheels, doesn't come with this chin spoiler, nor does it come with this hood or this trunk spoiler. So apart from those small changes, it's just a regular M4, cool nonetheless, but just a small mistake on the box's side. So let's see what's inside of this kit and go through the parts in a bit more detail further on in the video. So I know a lot of you don't really like the fact that these kits are quite pricey or expensive, so to say, and that they are basically curbside, meaning that they don't have an engine. I personally don't mind, as I'd rather have a nice looking exterior and interior than an engine that I can't even see because I'm not opening the hood, or a super detailed chassis that I won't look at as I'm not going to be turning the model around all the time. So the chassis does have a little bit of detail in it, but not too much. So it's just a nice thing that they added it in, but didn't go overboard to make these kits even more expensive with more parts. Also on this chassis for the rear section, there is part of the rear diffuser already molded in. To go along with the chassis, you also get a couple pieces where you need to mount the wheels and the brakes to. These are pretty simple pieces, just glue them in place, maybe even add a screw and put all the other components on top of them. Brake discs are of course also included. As usual with these kits, they do have a centerpiece like these in resin, and then later on there will be a Photoetch piece or a couple Photoetch pieces added on top each side to detail them out. Calipers are of course also included, a nice big one for the front and a smaller one for the rear, super detailed all round. Now, as with all of these kits, the chassis again is pretty simple. The interior on the other hand is nicely detailed. You get one bigger piece with the rear bench seat included already, but pretty much all of the other components are separate pieces and extremely detailed, and there are also a lot of pieces. So the seats that they decided to add into this one are the actual competition seats for the competition package that is orderable on these cars, or was available to order back when these were available. They didn't cut all the way through, as these are small slots here and on the back as well. And on the actual competition ones, they are completely see-through, so you could decide to do that or just leave them and make them look like the standard seat. The main piece for the center console is a pretty big one, but as you can see, it's already missing a couple pieces, which are the additional detail parts, like this one for the armrest, trim piece, and also the gear selector, and I think the handbrake too. So this is the piece for the armrest. It's a separate piece, making it easier to paint in a different contrasting color if you're going to go for a two-tone interior. So some various other trim pieces, and including the rear shark fin antenna, are molded onto separate sprues. This one already broke off, but I still have it. It's one of the trim pieces for the dashboard. They also did the vents in a separate piece too, which makes it a lot easier to paint and detail these, as they need to be made out of multiple colors depending on the spec of the interior you're going to go for. The iDrive system is also a nice separate piece, again making it a lot easier to detail. So the main gas pedal is also molded in a separate part, making it really realistic and 3D all round, and they of course have a nice piece of Photoetch to go on top of it. Other small bits for the interior are included too, even more. I think these are for the stereo system on the door panels. These are the Harman Kardon upgraded set. Again, these are some pieces that need to have some Photoetch too, but those are included as well. Some of the other pieces, of course, are here too. These are for, I think, the doors. Additional pieces, of course, the small shift knob, and of course the rear view mirror. The door panels themselves already have a lot of parts on there and detailed too, but there are a couple pieces separate, as you can see right here. These can, of course, be done in different contrasting colors, maybe even some carbon fiber, but that is all up to you. Some other parts for the door panels that are molded separately are the door handles, again making it a lot more convincing of a look and not just one molded in piece. Another sprue for the interior has the steering wheel, steering column, and also starts with some of the exterior pieces. I'm pretty sure this is an exhaust piece, but there are some metal ones included in the kit as well, so these won't be used. And there is a rear view mirror, which is again the recognizable M shape. The dashboard is a main big piece with a lot of detail already molded into it. A lot of parts for the gauges, even some of the vents and the main trim panels, and parts where you can put the navigation system in. It even has the heads-up display molded in there too, and the main part for the stereo piece is molded separately to make it a lot easier to paint and detail out. And that small piece for the radio is right here, along with the two headlight buckets. For the exterior, we of course have the recognizable M kidney grills and the rear taillight buckets too. Some of the final pieces for the interior and a couple more for the exterior. This is the navigation system, and these of course are the door handles for the exterior. The wheels and tires are included as well, of course. These are the standard M wheels and not the competition ones. I would have liked to seen the competition ones added in this kit as well, as I really like the look of the competition wheels over these ones, but nonetheless these are still really good looking wheels and will look great on the build. You could of course decide to add aftermarket options and maybe even print some of your own versions for the competition or even the CS versions. For the main clear parts, you get a pre-cut and pre-painted sheet for the rear window, the front window, and of course the side windows as well. The good thing is that they are pre-painted, so that takes a lot of the hassle out and makes it a lot cleaner of a look, as these lines are super sharp. On the rear window, they already have the heated vent lines installed too, and they are even painted in a matching orange-brown tone as the ones on the actual cars are. So those parts were mainly just a pre-cut plastic sheet, but there are also some super nicely clear molded pieces for the front and tail lights. These are nicely molded, have no imperfections that I can see so far, have a super smooth finish, and of course have the shape into them too, which is a really nice added touch. For in the headlight buckets, there are of course also some other details that needed to be put in, and these are just some of the bulbs. Metal parts are included in this one too. There are some screws to mount the chassis together and some of the exhaust tips. It's really cool to see these in actual metal, have a super nice finish, and of course also the slanted cut on the top. And as far as metal parts go, that's not the only thing that's included. There are multiple sheets of Photoetch, a couple with some details for seatbelts. They even have a super nice detailed seatbelt pattern in them too. I'm not sure if I'm going to use these or just use some of the actual seatbelt material that I have laying around, but it's nice to have the option. So the other parts for the interior are here. They have a couple trim pieces, some of the buckles, even some of the pedals, and a lot of the vents, making it a lot easier to have them in a different contrasting piece or just add a lot of detail, to say the least. Even more details for the interior, a couple of the meshes for some of the grills and the speakers, and other parts all around for even the mirrors and some other trim. On the exterior side, there are of course a couple of grills needed and some parts for the wipers, and there are even more mesh grills for the interior to detail that out even further. And the main big one is a lot of exterior parts, mainly just the disc brakes here, some trim for on the exterior around the windows, even more parts for the brakes. I think this is for the interior again, a couple trim pieces, but I might be wrong. These are the main grills for in the front bumper, a couple pieces to detail out the interior footwell with some plates to rest your foot, and of course also the main pedals and other mounting pieces here too. Now not only does it come with a lot of Photoetch, but there are some decals to give it a bit of life and color and make it a lot easier to detail out. These are the main pieces for the interior, the gauges, some logos for on the seats. These are, I think, for the main screen, and a couple of the buttons to detail out the dashboard and center console. Then for the exterior side, there are a couple of BMW M4 logos, the normal BMW roundels for on the front and rear, and also for on all the wheels. And then finally, there is also a small sheet with metal transfer stickers. These are just some stickers for the rear view mirror inside and the mirrors on the outside. And finally, the main piece most of you have probably been waiting for, the body. This is pretty much molded in one big piece, apart from some of the smaller details right here and on the side too. Of course, the buckets have been molded separately, which I've shown earlier in the video. And overall, I can't really find many imperfections in this body. The casting and molding has been improving on every single kit they have been doing, so that is great to see that they're not just stopping and taking what they have, but they are actually improving their work. Now, as usual, the panel lines are a bit shallow. They look very realistic, but after a couple coats of paint, these will probably disappear, so they need a bit of depth and some scribing to fix that, of course. Other details all around, again, super nicely molded in and super crisp cast, and detail wise, I'm really happy with the way that this looks, and I look forward to building it. Some other parts for the door panels that are molded separately,